Ladies and gentlemen, welcome inside the podcast studio. This is QBSN, the podcast, episode 18, with Q30 lacrosse beat reporter, Zach Stokinger. All right, so we're talking men's lax coming off a big win against 20th Sacred Heart. And then we're talking some women's lax. Had another big win against Ryder. Tough game to watch for Ryder, but it's all right.
Not something they're going to remember for a while.
Yeah. So men's lax, 3-8 overall. Still completely defeated at home, 0-4. 3-4 away, and then 2-3, ranked 6th in the MAC. So we just mentioned it. They beat 20th ranked Sacred Heart 16-14, I believe. First time. First time. Second time.
So it's their first time since 2023. So first time since anybody in this room has ever been at Quinnipiac. But they took down number 13 Brown 11-10. So biggest,
two close games.
Biggest margin of victory for ranked wins. You know, you bumped from 1 to 2. So I guess you'll take it where you can.
Right. So now Sacred Heart was undefeated. They were 10-0 coming into the game. So talk to me about what went right for the Bobcats. How did they get it done?
I think, honestly, looking at some of the notes and going through it recently, what won Quinnipiac the game was their second half. It was a 10-5 second half in favor of the Bobcats. You know, they had a big third quarter, 7-2, outscoring Sacred Heart. And I think, honestly, through the trend has been for this men's lax team, the switching goalie has kind of given the team a jolt. You'll see this in other pro leagues. You'll see like a coach get fired, or you'll see a switch in the net, and it kind of gets everybody going like, oh, okay, we got to get right. And Evan Miner has really, really been a great, not addition, but a great switch from Mason Oak. Mason Oak, former MAC Defensive Player of the Year, one of the better MAC goalies coming into this year. Not so year last year, the staff thought there would be a bounce back. It just hasn't worked for him. Through 6 games, he's 1-5, a 16.01 goals against, 386 save. That's just not going to cut it at the Division-I level. That might cut it at high school, and then you look at minor stats, similar games played, more shots faced, only by a couple, but still more. He's 1-3, didn't get a decision in that other win, and he's 1160 goals against and a 5.59 saves percentage. He's someone who can get you 10 saves a game. And if you have a goalie like that, and especially in the MAC when defenses aren't that great, attack's going to get a lot more chances and a lot more open opportunities. You know, having someone that can step up and make 13 saves in a ranked win is someone you're going to need down the stretch.
Right. Now, flipping to the other side, the attack position, junior Nate Watson, 30 goals, 7 assists. What makes him so good? What elevates his game above the rest of the attackmen on Quinnipiac, and then really in the MAC as well?
I don't know what you guys call it in lacrosse. I didn't really grow up playing the sport, but when you got someone who's got a golden hand or a golden touch, a Midas touch, I don't know if anybody's heard of that, a Midas touch, that's something that Nate Watson has. He's just got a golden stick. He can get in there. He's physical, but he's able to slip through a couple defenders. I mean, especially in that Maris game, he was getting it going. He's been one of the best players in the past 5 games. 14 goals, 17 points. He's just a goal getter. You know, he's kind of like an Ovechkin. Ovechkin will sit in his corner and get there and get on the left-hand side, and he'll get it done. That's kind of how Watson plays. He plays on the left-hand side. You know, you get it to Watson, and he'll break in. He'll maybe dish a pass to someone like Marsala or, you know, Justin Robert, and he gets it done. He's someone you can rely on to get you a goal every single possession.
Right. But he's not, you know, he is physical, but he's not the biggest guy out there. He's actually one of the smaller guys out there.
He is.
Which gives him the advantage to get in the middle and kind of become, like, unnoticeable.
Especially if you have someone on defense who's, like, 6'2". That's the best way someone who's short can use their advantage. If someone's 6'2", they got to have a long reach to get to them. They can get around them a little bit quicker. There's a lot less mass to move, and that's something in lacrosse that you need, especially in the men's game. It's so physical; they'll get right on you. But if you're someone like Watson, who's got enough speed and skill to get around bigger opponents, you're going to get a lot of good open opportunities, and he's taking advantage of that.
Right. Now, this has been one of the bigger stories in Quinnipiac spring athletics. Really, you could say Quinnipiac athletics overall. the home curse for men's lacrosse. Last time Quinnipiac men's lacrosse won at home was March 30th. Wasn't March 30th?
It was April 13th.
April 13th.
Against VMI. But
of 2024 against VMI.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the VMI, I was at this game. That's how old I am. Oh God, I just aged myself. Skipping past that, but it's been 23 months since they won a game. Actually, it's coming up close to a full 2 years since this has happened. But they've just had a lot of close games, and they just also haven't been at home as much. They only have 6 home games this season. They were at home a lot, and throughout those past couple times, not a lot. They just don't start well. They're not Quinnipiac has never been a team lacrosse-wise in the past couple of years that has had a 3-0 start, a good month of February, a good month of March. Could that be because it's freezing outside? Who knows? The weather could tend to play a factor, but it's a difficult 23 months, multiple one-loss games in this 23-month stretch. The defense just can't wrap it up. You can only do so much as a defender and as a goaltender. And if the opponent's attackers are getting open looks, they're going to get open looks. They're D1 athletes. But, they just haven't played much at home this year at all. And the teams that they have played are significantly higher in the rankings. St. John's, UMass, they play a higher level of competition day in and day out compared to Quinnipiac. So there's just a talent disparity. And then when you're playing, when they were at home this year, they're playing some of the top teams in the MAC. I mean, you can't. The Marist is one of the better teams consistently, and they took them to the wire. It was 13-12, and I don't think a 2025 Quinnipiac team could do that. Right. So I think the 23 months statistic is kind of overblown. They just haven't played well at home, or they just haven't played the right opponent.
So when we talk about that 23-month gap, what do they have to do if fast starts are theoretically impossible, right? Let's just say that. What do they have to do? Because against Marist, they blew 2 3-goal leads.
They did.
So they had opportunities and then they just gave it away. What do they have to do?
I think rounding out the defense has been a key emphasis for this team, and I think that we've seen improvements significantly, especially in that Marist game. There's a lot of improvement from the defense compared to the start of the year, especially in that game against UMass. It's just getting those lanes clogged, and they kind of don't when the time comes. I mean, it's a 60-minute game. You're going to get tired. You're going to get the mental lapses are going to happen. It's part of the sport. It's part of all sports. But I think really focusing in on the defense and also trying to get the ball as far away from Evan Miner's cage as quick as possible. And they can't, and I think they'll be able to do that because the next 3 games, I know we were kind of getting off topic game, but the next 2 games for the Quinnipiac are winnable. And I think a 6-8 season coming off a 3-12 season is a huge improvement for this squad.
Right. Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Do you think there's any mental thing going on there where it's some of these players have never won at home, but you don't think that has anything to do with it?
I think lacrosse players as a breed, I know that's really weird to say, but lacrosse players as a breed are competitors and they're going to compete to the last second. You'll see that in any Division I athlete. It could be in underwater basket weaving, it could be in football, it could be in rowing. They're going to compete to the last second. I don't think there's a mental lapse that, oh my God, we can't win at home. I think there's honestly just, they do better on the road. They do better when they're going into an environment they're not used to. And when they come home, it's they just play better competition. I think that's just why the stat exists. I don't think there's a mental block.
Okay.
1, because they're Division I athletes. And 2, they are really good on the road. And I think they just like the challenge. And maybe they don't see home as a challenge. But I just don't think that it's a mental block in any of their minds.
Now, talked about a couple winnable games coming up. Saturday, Mount St. Mary's at home. Expectations for that. What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I was diving back through the statistics in Mount St. Mary's. Quinnipiac's outscored the Mountaineers 47-38 in their past 3 matchups. But my expectations as a beat reporter, and honestly as a beat reporter and as a fan, they got to win this one. They're 3-8, but they're right in the 6th spot for the playoffs. MAC playoffs only have 6 spots in both men's and women's lacrosse. It's a must-win game. These 3 games, despite the opponents being below them in the standings, they got to win them. Because if you lose any one of these games, you're leaving your fate out of your own hands. And I think since they have an advantage to play the 3 teams lower than them in the conference, they have a really good chance to getting maybe to a 5 seed. Heck, maybe even into a 4 seed. And, getting a home playoff game for the men's lacrosse team is huge. They've always been on the road, and last year they were the 6th seed and somehow made it into the semifinals. But I think this team has really built along, just has continued to build over this season, and it's a really good time for them to get hot.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that, and I think Mount St. Mary's not one of the top teams in the MAC. Definitely a game they can go in and win. It's just about, can they get over that hump? Can the defense finish out those games? We're going to see. Hopefully they can coming up Saturday. But let's jump over to women's lacrosse. 8-6 overall, 4-3 at home, 4-3 away, 3-3. Still 7th in the MAC, or did they bump up?
They bumped up to 5th.
5th, okay.
So yesterday, Marist lost. Marist lost yesterday. Sacred Heart won, I believe.
Because the MAC,
I'm going to check that right now.
The MAC schedule is set up so that all these teams are playing basically at the same time.
Exactly.
So these rankings and seedings are all getting switched around.
Yeah. So going through what happened yesterday, Siena beat Marist. You got Fairfield, Niagara, the 2 top teams, win again. Sacred Heart also lost, so that's huge for Quinnipiac.
Right.
Sacred Heart coming off a loss. They got to play them later, but then you got Fairfield. It's a really tough stretch for Quinnipiac to finish, especially in a seed where they can easily get eliminated if they lose these 2 games. But, Saturday is going to be a fun one. Yeah. I can definitely say that.
Now, talk to me about their biggest strengths and weaknesses. I was at their game yesterday, and, it was Ryder, right? So it wasn't the high-level competition that they usually play. But, their clears were unbelievable.
Absolutely.
They were getting the ball east to west in, seconds.
I think Ryder was a really good get-back game for this team. I think the Merrimack game, they might have looked past their opponents. And they might have seen Merrimack as a team that they could beat easily. And you go to North Andover and they lost. They lost. That's a harsh reality of sports. You're gonna have games where you should have won a game. And Merrimack was a game that Quinnipiac should have won. Merrimack, that's the only MAC win Merrimack has and probably will have for the rest of the season. So, as a team who's consistently in that top 5, top 4 in the MAC year after year, it's not a good game to lose. But I think Ryder really got them back on track and hey, we need to focus in.
Right.
And does it help that Ryder is not a great team? Maybe, but they're a Division-I team. They're Division-I athletes, and they're going to compete every single time. And I think Quinnipiac just saw them as another opponent, and they took care of business. And They took care of business very well.
Right.
We had a couple defenders on attack. That's how good it was. So, I think that the Ryder was a really good mindset going into Fairfield and Sacred Heart.
Right. Now, what would you say their biggest strengths and weaknesses are?
I think funny enough, both lacrosse teams have similar strengths and weaknesses. The Quinnipiac women's lacrosse attack is one of the best in the conference. It's top 3 at least. But their defense has cost them games. We talked about that with the men's team, but I think it's also the way the women's play the game. They don't typically run a normal setup. They like to run. I was talking with one of my friends, Emma Morris.
General Grove.
Shout out General. Shout out. But I think the formation's like a 3-5-4 or something like that, and you could play a 4-4-4, where 4 in the mid, 3, 4 on defense, or 3 a 3-4-4. I think it's 11. Yeah, something like that. But they like to play 3 at the top in attack, and they like to play 4 on back end defense and then 3 in the middle. And yeah, so but they like to bring an attacker back into the midfield, and their draw controls have cost them a lot of those games. It's a really unfortunate reality, but Sophia Cohn hasn't had the greatest time with draw control. She did pretty well yesterday, I think, but there were still battles.
Right.
And when you're playing against a team that's just out in the dumps, and I think you could tell in warm-ups that this Rider team is kind of counting down the days till the season's over. When you're almost losing draw controls like that, it's a concerning sign, and she just hasn't had a good year. But that's a reality. That's a reality of sports. You're going to have a bad year. And continuing right after the draw controls, once those teams break in, the defense can't clog lanes. They can't keep attackers out. They can't get the ball on the ground. Bryant, there was a big example where the face-off, I think it was like at least 3. The face-off player for Bryant a couple weeks ago had 3 goals, all on break-ins. Yeah. Manhattan had a similar thing. Niagara did the similar thing. You can beat the team through the midfield, and the defense can't really stop it. So I think tightening up the midfield, tightening up the defense is going to be really crucial heading into the postseason. And we saw that against Rider, but in my opinion, it's not going to be enough. You're playing the top team in Fairfield. Playing top team in Fairfield and playing a very difficult team in Sacred Heart to finish up the season. You're going to need your best games day in and day out.
Yeah, especially to your point, not having the best defense. Those possessions are so important. And when you have a team that can possess the ball in Fairfield and go down and just score, win the possession, score, win the draw, and you just never get offensive opportunities because you can't turn them over, and they just control the ball the whole time, and they control the game. So
absolutely.
Yeah, that's tough. Women's lacrosse has an oddly large number of freshmen. Huge freshman class.
They do.
What advantage does that give them down the line?
I think it's weird. It's a weird thing to say, but I think they don't know how to lose. They don't know what a bad loss is. They do, but it's a regular season loss. They don't know. They don't have expectations. That's a better way to put it. They don't have expectations. And not having expectations, especially in the sports world, is honestly the best thing to have. Because moving forward, if you have no expectations, you'll take anything. You'll take whatever situation comes to you, and you don't expect an outcome. And you'll see that in any sport, but not having the expectations, not expecting to be the top in the MAC, not expecting to be the top offense, not expecting to be, in the MAC championship. That's the best way to approach something mindset-wise, because whatever you do, it's a success. And I think that's kind of what the freshmen have done. And I talked about it with Coach Solari before the season. She was really high on this freshman class, and they've delivered. 3 of the top 10 scorers are freshmen. Provenzano, you have Choma, and then, you have 3 at the top. You have Peyton Choma, you have Provenzano. Those 2 have really played well. Choma had a really good game from the X with Bendowski. Bendowski has, I think, really helped her this season, and she's really physical. She's not afraid of contact, and it's fresh to see how good these freshmen can be, and it's a good sign for us. Hopefully they don't transfer. Fingers crossed.
Right.
But I think when you don't have expectations and you also combine that with a lot of talent, it's been a really good recipe for success for this team.
Right. Now, I want to ask, do you see this group as a group that will stay together? Because they have 3 first-year goalies. Obviously, all 3 first-year goalies aren't going to play. Say they stay together till they're seniors.
Yeah.
You're going to have most likely 1 or 2 of those goalies that haven't seen playing time their entire career. Do you expect this group to stay together, or can you see them kind of venturing out and trying to find other places to go?
It's hard to say in the transfer portal era in the NCAA because anything can happen. But just over the time covering this team is probably the closest team on campus. Their team is like this. There's not very many edges that you can sneak in there to take someone out of it. It's a cohesive unit. And they always preach that. They always preach being a cohesive unit. And even some of the parents I hear in the background, they always talk about how highly of this program and how close-knit it is and how much of a family it is. And you have a chemistry like that. You have a locker room like that. I don't think you can really break that up as easily unless you have, an ACC team calling your name. I mean, it's the transfer portal. You can do the best thing for you and your career, but I don't see a lot of these players leaving because they love it here. Right. And when you have a coach like Jordan Solari who can foster that kind of environment even when times are tough, I think you're going to see a lot of people stay even if they don't touch the field. So I don't see in the foreseeable future losing a lot of players. I just think that they're only going to continue to build.
Now, Mia Delmond, senior tech, 33 goals, 55.9 shot percentage. What does she mean to this team, and do you see someone coming up that can replace her next year?
Well, starting off, Mia Delmond is the bread and butter of this team. She is going to get you a goal when you need it. You can go to Delmond, and she'll make a play. And having a player like that is very difficult to come by. And it's going to be really tough for this team to find someone else that could fill just what Delmond does. I think you can do a tandem that could work out, maybe even a trio that could produce, but that's 3 players on the field compared to Mia and Delmond, who's just one person.
Right.
And, coming into this year, she lost her – not lost, but Ella Grace Delmond, her older sister, left. She was done. She graduated, and she was done playing lacrosse, and Delmond came back for her senior year, and you're not playing with your sister anymore. And I think, there could have been a step back from her because she doesn't have that kind of connection. I mean, playing with your sibling, there's a lot deeper connection than playing with someone you've played with for 3 months. And I think her coming in, her being a leader, she's just grown exponentially this year, and she's been able to make so many plays and not be the center of attention.
Yeah.
This Quinnipiac offense is, for the MAC, it's elite. I think it's one of the best offenses you can come around, and they're able to find ways to score.
Right.
And they're able to capitalize on a lot of teams' small mistakes. But replacing Delmond, I don't know. I can't give a certain person. I could give you a couple that I think have really shined this year. I think Brie Provenzano has stepped up huge as a first year. Again, back to that big first year class. I don't see Choma really going for really taking over Delmond's spot because Delmond likes to play in front of the cage and not at the X, where Choma's really succeeded this year. Mm-hmm. And I mean, even looking at some other more experienced players, I guess you could say maybe someone like Emma Miller-Ayala could step into that role, but she's more of a midfielder.
Yeah.
I don't really see someone stepping in and taking that attack like Delmond has. Okay. I think you can do a committee for the foreseeable future, but you only come across Mia Delmond every blue moon.
Right.
So I don't know if Delmond's going to initially be fully replaced, but I think that, like many other sports, the team will lose players, but they'll gain some new ones, and they'll just reinvigorate the team, and they'll move forward without her. But she's going to be a huge loss for this program.
Yeah. Now, coming to the end of the regular season, where do you see them finishing in the MAC?
4th to 7th. I think they could get as high as 4th. In a fan's perspective, I want them to win these 2 games. And if they win these 2 games, I can definitely see them getting up to 4th and, being a top team. But I can also see this team losing both these games. And I know it might be taboo to say as a reporter, I don't come into these games with a positive outlook. I think that you need to perform, and that loss in Merrimack could be concerning. Obviously, you got to win against Ryder, and I guess that's a momentum builder. But if you can't beat someone who's 9th in the MAC, how are you going to beat someone who's top the MAC? How are you going to how are you going to even beat Sacred Heart, who's right behind you in 7th? So, on a bad day, if they get bad days both days and they can't win, I could see them being eliminated. And that's a shame because I think this team is extremely talented. But I also could see this team getting as high as 4th. But I think right where they are right now in 5th and 6th, like you really want to be in this range right now because you control your own destiny.
Right.
And they have a really good opportunity to get back and, be back in the playoffs. But I could also see this team getting eliminated on the last day. It's really up in the air. We won't know till the final whistle blows on the 18th.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what they can do. We'll see if men's lacrosse can also win a couple games and get into the tournament.
Fingers crossed.
But 6th in the MAC, men's lacrosse, 5th in the MAC, women's lacrosse. We'll see where they end up in a couple weeks. Stokes, such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. That was episode 18 of QBSN, the podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Have an amazing week. Peace.